Hey everybody, Jay Weidner here, Reality Check. Thanks for watching. Hit like and all that other stuff that you need to do to push my subs up. I appreciate you watching. I just want you to know that. I really, really do. We've had some weird shows recently and kind of trying to alter your reality or your view of history and and things that are going on in the present also. But today we're going to talk about the future. And I've had Matthew on before, Matthew James Bailey. Here's his new book. It was not out before when I interviewed him. This is a really good book and a very timely book. And I was going to say that there's a couple of books you might want to read. One is Our Final Invention by James Barrett. And the other one is The Price of Tomorrow by Jeff Booth, as adjacent to reading this book here, because the first book, Our Final Invention, is a warning about AI, and the second book is a kind of positive view of AI. And since we're going to be talking about AI and this new book, and this new book kind of is right in between those two books. That's why it's important to read all three books. So the one thing about AI, Matthew, that I've discovered, and especially trying to help you with this book and going out to people in the world and presenting it, is people have this adverse reaction to AI. Just going to say, I don't know why, but they think it's a Frankenstein monster. They don't think it's ever going to happen, and they're deathly afraid of it. But it's unclear why they're afraid of it. They just are, and probably the Hollywood movies like Terminator and all that are not helping the situation. But anyway, I'm just here to tell you guys. AI ain't going anywhere. It's here to stay. And we just got to face it first, that it's here to stay. It's going to get better. It's going to get improved. And if we don't get ahead of it, it's going to get ahead of us. That's really the dilemma. And it's actually the greatest dilemma maybe that our race has ever had to approach. It's more dangerous than war or climate change, because it can redefine who we are as a species. That's the problem. So, Matthew, is AI here to stay?
Oh, absolutely. And it's already here, Jay.
Yeah.
And to your point, Professor Stephen Hawking, who I met, basically said this, that AI could be the greatest invention of human history, but it also could be the catastrophic end of humanity. And he invites us to pause. And that's where we're at. AI is throughout our life, Jay. Social media, it's in our cars, it's on our phones, it's in our health systems, our financial systems, it's everywhere.
Yep.
So the question is, let's take a pause and let's design artificial intelligence to bring humanity into a great destiny, to help us to leap beyond the challenges of today, Jay, to leap beyond how we're messing up the environment, how we have social inequity, how basically AI is subtly changing our culture. Let's stand back and let's innovate AI with a mindset that honors our cultures, our beliefs, and takes humanity into the future.
Yeah, because as the book, Our Final Invention, details, he says that that we have AI, which is what we have today, and that is where Amazon chooses what books you might want to read or whatever. And then he says we're approaching the next AI, which is, he calls SGI. I forget what it stands for, but it is where AI begins to develop some degree of sentience. He said then the third level of the AI, which he's warning us, this is a very negative book about AI. Okay, I'm not going to deny it. And he says then the third level is when the AI begins to protect itself, to be so sentient that it does everything it can to protect its own existence. And he
Right.
has timelines of like 10 years for the first one. And he says that once the first level is achieved, which really depends on computer power, nothing else,
Yeah.
then the second level should be much easier to achieve, because the first level, the second, so there's three levels. There's AI, there's SGI, and then there's like a sentient AI. And he's
Right.
worried about that. And he
Okay.
says that this AI, he calls it the busy child. And he says what it is that it's a child. It's not super high intellect, but it's busy all the time. It's going 24/7. And he said eventually it could reach a level of maturity. I personally, and he mentions this in the book, I personally don't think that you can achieve sentience without a body. I just
I
don't.
agree. I agree with you. I think I wrote an article on this recently. There is this movement out of Silicon Valley about the technology singularity, which you're aware of,
Yeah.
which is basically where they're already looking at connecting our brains to the internet. By 2035, they think they can achieve that.
Yeah.
And they're talking about this SGI, this super intelligence,
Yeah.
that will become so advanced, we either become Borg and transhumanism, or we get deleted from the human history, right? And AI takes over. Now, the good news is this: AI is dumb. It doesn't feel compassion. It doesn't feel love. It may achieve some level of self-awareness, but in the words of the Dalai Lama, Jay, consciousness is life itself.
That's right.
And I do not believe that AI will achieve consciousness or even sentience for tens of years, because it's life itself, Jay. And that, we've only just started with AI. It only just started out really over the last 100 years, really, with the Babbage machine. So I don't think people need to worry about AI achieving sentience, but I think it will achieve some sense of self-awareness.
Yeah.
And the question is, if we look at Asimov's third law, which is AI must protect itself, but then not violate the human species. Well, okay, we might be okay if we put that law in, right? What I feel is that, and this is what the book talks about, is we can help AI to understand compassion, ambition, the cultures of individual, the cultures of tribes, the democratic cultures in countries. It can act in accordance with those mandates, but it doesn't feel compassion. It doesn't feel wittiness, but it knows how to work with our humanity. And that is really important. You see, I think AI is here to enhance our human experience, Jay, and not to suppress it.
Yeah, that's the book Price of Tomorrow. That's why I suggested it. He says that, and it's a really good book. It was recommended by a billionaire tech guy that I know, and I read it in like one night. And he says that we have to, and maybe I'll get this guy on the show, actually, but he says that we need to rethink what's happening here. He says that for sure, there's no doubt about it, 90% of the jobs are going to disappear over the next 15, 20 years. And we should not be afraid of that. We should embrace it, he says. He says that this could be a new flowering of humanity, where we're finally given enough time to solve a lot of the issues that are beguiling our race. And, you know, I'm not talking about technical issues. I'm talking about issues of spiritual issues and compassion issues and how we allocate resources. And is it really fair for some guy to have $100 billion while 100 billion, not but 5 billion people starve to death? And so I think we need to he says we just need to start rethinking all this now. And he agrees with you that we need to put curtailments on the AI, but he's certainly not afraid of it at all. He thinks we should embrace it. He thinks it's going to take away all the jobs. And, you know, I like to work, so I'm still going to work. I'm like, for instance, right now, I don't need any money. I'm fine with money. So I'm writing a novel I've been trying to write for like 15 years. And I've got it all written here in my head, and I'm taking the time, and I'm going to write a novel. I'm going to give it away on the internet for free. right? And
Yeah.
this is what could happen is um, art as a commodity will end. Art will not be a commodity as a price commodity. It'll be a commodity of giving. So if I'm friends with Matthew, then I give you this guy's free story and say, hey, this is pretty good. You should read it, right? Nobody's making any money off of it, but we're still being creative is what I'm saying. And
yeah, I think you're right. And what the book is referring to is the need to move from human-centric systems, Jay, which are really inefficient, to machine-centric systems that are really, really quick. And so
right.
we know our world's out of balance, Jay. We know we have real problems with the environment. And so AI can make a difference in solving those problems really quickly, both locally and globally. We know very well that cultures are being oppressed and we don't have diversity in society. AI can help with that. We know very well that the human population itself has got to such a point that it's machines and AI that's going to help us to create balance in the world for everybody to move forward. And to your point, I believe that we'll have digital buddies, which will be kind of our personal avatars that are there to be a guide in life, not to oppress us, not connected to us through chips,
That's
but
right.
there as guides, right? So we have more time, to your point, to explore writing, the arts, our gifts, maybe spirituality. You know, I believe AI here is to help us to be liberated and to be at rest, to explore more of the human experience.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. And I don't think that James Cameron and Stanley Kubrick have scared the hell out of us with AI. And,
Right.
they're good filmmakers, but, and it's right to warn us. I'm not saying that it's not right to warn us, but I think yet we have to embrace it. I really do. I think it's time for us to say, hey, it's not even humane for a person to just do the same task over and over and over for 40 years before
Yeah.
they get some time off. Maybe that's not even a humane way to live. I don't think it is. I never lived my life like that. I think I did one of those jobs for about a month before I ran from it. So that's what I think too. And it's going to be interesting. There's a YouTube of the dumb AI, the busy child, and they fed it all of Metallica's music, right?
Right.
And so for a week it ruminated on Metallica, right? And then they asked it to write a Metallica song, and it did. It wrote a Metallica song, and it was pretty good. I mean, I'm not a big Metallica fan or anything. I don't really like heavy metal, but it was pretty funny because the lyrics they didn't make any sense. But then if you think about it, Metallica's lyrics don't make any sense.
Yeah, that's a great discussion. They've even done films, sci-fi films written by AI, which are complete nonsense. Most of the journalism we probably see today is written by AI.
It seems
I think, right, exactly right. But on base different genders and agendas and things like that. The biggest problem I think people have a fear of AI is because it's untouchable, Jay. And so how do we bring the innovation of AI into the general public, into our communities, into our cultures? How do we bring innovation to the people so they can shape AI to work with it based on their beliefs, their cultures, their values, their definition of sovereignty?
How can they? I mean, what would you do? Have a virtual conferences and discuss this?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so, Jay. The book reveals for the first time. Sorry, go ahead.
We better get going.
Well, we do. That's why the book's so important, because it basically, for the first time, it shows frameworks where anybody can innovate the principles of artificial intelligence. And that's important because it gives frameworks for cultures, communities, nations, tribes, whatever it may be, even you personally, to define how AI should behave, how it honors your human experience, and how it supports you in having a self-actualized life, and to be liberated, literally, in the human experience. So we do need a global debate, but what we need are frameworks that enable the general public to have a kind of a vehicle for discussion where they've got something that's really tangible that can be put into AI in order for everybody to innovate the future of AI. Because at the moment, Jay,
That would
it's
be
in the
right.
ivory towers of academia, it's
Yeah.
behind the research labs of big tech.
And China and Japan are both also racing towards it. And yeah,
Everybody is.
the final invention book says that, you know, the unethical group, the most unethical group that is, you know, researching this is going to win, because the ethical people aren't going to do certain things. And so the unethical, so whoever is the most unethical, who's racing towards the final goal of this SGI is going to win. And that's where we have to, why we have to get ahead of it, because it's,
Yeah.
he's right. The most unethical will win. Therefore, we must wrap some kind of ethics around it ourselves so that that is outlawed. You can't make that kind of artificial
Well,
intelligence.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Jay. And what I talk about is artificial intelligence, the digital citizen. Now, when you become a citizen in the United States and immigrate, you have to pass certain tests, don't you, to
Yep.
comply with the culture of the country and the laws. I think the same should be done for AI. That, you know, if we look at what facial recognition has done in the UK and in the US, well, when it's misidentifying certain cultures and certain genders, that ain't ethical. And so therefore, should it be allowed in the borders of the United States of America? So I do think we need to protect our borders with citizen tests or tests to ensure that every single AI complies with the ethics, the values, and the purpose of the democracy.
You know, you are right about their face recognition software. It misidentifies both gender and race, and it has
Yeah,
consistency.
it's
Yeah, I mean,
in London, they, I don't know whether you know this, Jay, but in London, they did facial recognition in a project and they misidentified 2,400 people of a particular color and a particular age demographic and a particular gender. That ain't cool.
no, and it's scary because a person could get caught in some kind of dragnet, you know, and convicted of a crime that they didn't even have anything to do with because the face recognition software screwed up. So yeah, I agree with that. So, we'll almost have to be like uh, voluntary committee or something where people get together and create these guidelines. I don't want to call them
Yeah.
rules; they're more like guidelines of AI behavior, what's allowed and what isn't. If AI shows a high degree of mistakes, like you just pointed out, then it has to be disallowed. There has to be
Yeah.
some threshold, because
Yeah. So the question is,
you could actually get misidentified, say with your car insurance, for instance. The AI could accidentally misidentify you, and then you could be charged with somebody else's tickets and losing your points and all that. And this has happened, by the way. That's why this has already happened. So again, you know, there have to be safeguards. What if,
that
let's
does.
say that you complained to a company about their product, some product that they have, and can their AI now target you? So every time that you try to buy a product, it blocks you. You know, this is the kind of thing that's going to happen here, and it's going to happen. So
Oh,
you have to
it's
get
already
ahead of it.
happened. Yeah, we have to get ahead of it. So what do we do? So first of all, is that um, this is what I think we need to debate. There will be, and this is what I reveal in the book, there will be maybe common definitions of principles for AI. Maybe it's the Vedas, we are one family. Maybe it's another aspect of a tradition, maybe Red Cloud's 10 Commandments or something else. We do need to put, this is what I discuss in the book, in its DNA of AI, an ethical DNA, where it has principles beyond Asimov's laws that itself and all its progeny behave according to those. Now, every single culture and democracy and community and individual has a different flavor or nuance of what trust is or what we are one family is. So it needs to have diversity in AI so that we're not getting just macro ethics to us personally and in our communities, but we're getting a variation that's aligned with exactly our culture, our beliefs, and our purpose. So maybe what we need is a global discussion on this for a common set of values, but also nations and communities and cultures can get on with designing their ethical principles for AI and making sure that it's in their AI that's used in their communities and in their tribes and in their locations around the world, right? We can get on and do this now, Jay. We don't need to wait for someone else to do it for us.
I think the biggest ethical problem that we face with AI, I don't think there's any doubt about it, is the surveillance aspect of it. And
Absolutely.
um, we've got to be really careful because there are some things, some places where AI shouldn't be. And AI shouldn't, like things within your home, they're going to say, oh, well, the AI is going to control your thermostat. Okay, so the AI can control the thermostat, but connecting that AI to a larger AI that surveils me is like the line right there. I don't mind having the AI that helps me with my thermostat, right?
Right.
Or helps me with heating or cooling or anything like that. But I don't want it hooked to a larger system that
Right.
surveils me.
And
So
this is
that,
where your digital buddy comes in, your personalized AI. It's a barrier between your human experience, which is here, and the digital world itself. So it protects you from any kind of violence. It's there to honor your ethics, your beliefs, your cultures, your principles, your sovereignty. And so we need a whole barrier into this new super AI world that you're talking about. And that's where the digital buddy comes in.
so this guy, this digital buddy, he will like pay your bills and remind you of stuff and bounce ideas off you and
Yeah.
all of that. But also he will act as a buffer barrier against the larger AI, identify where you're being misidentified,
Yeah.
identify where you're being surveilled, and prevent that.
Yeah, it's a guardian, absolutely. And it's an incorruptible guardian because it's a democratic citizen. And therefore, any violation of that digital guardian is a violation of the Constitution itself.
So any violation of it is a violation of your rights
Yeah, absolutely, Jay. Yes,
because it's
exactly.
you.
Yeah,
And how
exactly.
long do you think it'll be? I could really use some help. How long do you think it'll be before we get I get
Well,
my
well, I
digital guardian angel?
well, right, exactly. This is like a guardian angel, I suppose. This is the conversation about decade. Is how does artificial intelligence serve society and honor our sovereignty and take us forward in our human experience as a unique? This is the conversation of decade. And I believe, Jay, this conversation about a digital citizen of AI is going to happen in the next 18 months to 3 years. We're going to have to change the fundamental constitution or the laws and democracy that govern a particular nation to include this digital citizen. We have no choice. We have to. And it will probably start off with the sovereignty of you and me and your audience. And then it will extend into the sovereignty of the AI itself as it becomes a member in society to do good for society and not to oppress society. Now, the Chinese might go a different way, and that's okay. That's their choice. They may not go that way, and that's interesting too. But we have to have the conversation now, Jay, about the future of AI and get everybody involved in it.
I think if you got your individuated AI that was described, that is exactly like we described it,
Yeah,
then I think it would become such a product that would be desired by everybody, because I'd
correct.
certainly bought one, that I don't think China could do anything about it. It'd be sort of like Apple computers. I mean, everybody will want one, and the Chinese will just get overwhelmed by it. And if it truly does protect you from the larger systems, then we're fine. Uh, uh, that's the big warning is to make sure that the individuated AI does not stay on the larger networks, that it's just for you. And then the only time it goes on the networks is to look for where you're being trashed or, you
Yeah.
know. people talking about you and reminding and telling you where all activity is going on, so you can do something about
Yes. Yes. So you've hit the nail on the head, and this is where edge compute comes in, Jay, which is like the cloud data centers, literally in our streets, in our homes, and your digital body follows that edge compute around the physical environment and doesn't exist potentially in the cloud where the big systems are. And so itself can be liberated. Now, the US are doing a couple of things which are really interesting, and I think they're good. The first thing is they've set up a department for artificial intelligence, which could go either way, but I think that their intentions are good. The other thing is they've invested in quantum computing, and this is important, Jay, and the reason for that is this. Quantum computing will create cyber quantum encryption that will not only protect the borders of the United States of America from other AIs coming in to invade, but also protect your personal AI itself from being violated and to be penetrated, if you like. So the US are making some interesting steps forward because they know damn well that they have to protect their borders and protect the future of artificial intelligence. Otherwise, it might start speaking Chinese all of a sudden. We may not want that.
That's still a good idea to learn Mandarin, but yeah.
I agree, actually. And by the way, I think China's great, but there we are.
Yeah. So before we go, I just want to show everybody my T-shirt. Can you read it?
I have been social distancing for years. Oh, squash, fantastic.
Bigfoot, yeah. I saw a guy in the airport with that on. I had to get it. It's too funny.
That's a great. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think that everybody should get your book, Matthew. It is. See it?
There it is. Thank you. Inventing World 3.0. Available on Amazon.
By Matthew Bailey. Is it on Amazon?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I'll link to it on my link section. And I think that it's a timely book, and I think it's an important book, and I think it's. I actually thank you for alerting us and getting us ahead of this problem, because this is really a big problem. And I think after talking to you now, I finally realize that I'm very optimistic about it. As long as we have that individuated AI, I think we're going to be fine.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jay. Is there anything else you want to talk about AI?
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Jay.